Hey everybody, welcome back to the Overwatch Project. It's Friday, April 10th, 2020. And right now where I'm at, it's about 10:20, almost 10:30 p.m. In this podcast, I wanted to talk about what's been going on. Basically, I wanted to have a bit of a rant, kind of hard to find the right words. Basically about how many sheeple there are in this world and how screwed up so many people are and how easily it is to panic them and to cause them to hoard shit like toilet paper. I mean, it's just amazing. People driving around with masks on in the car, in their car with dish detergent or dishwashing gloves on. A guy going to the grocery store the other day literally wearing a scuba mask and snorkel. I mean, you couldn't make this up. That's one thing I want to talk about. And then I wanted to give you a review on a couple of books I read recently. By occultist named by Sofia Di Gregorio. I started listening to her podcasts, and I went and got a couple of her books to see what was in them, and I read two of them thoroughly, and they're both really good, so stay tuned for that. But first, so welcome to the Overwatch Project. Now, my website is OverwatchProject.com. That's one word, OverwatchProject.com. You can go there, and if you're kind of new to what I'm doing here, basically I have a commentary based on a lot of research that I do about not only our physical lives, our physical reality that we experience here in the earth plane, in this material dimensional state of our universe, and the meaning and purpose of our lives here, our true history, explore some of the mysteries of life and of the afterlife, and where we could potentially go in spirit form, especially for people that do not wish to reincarnate here again, and how to avoid traps of reincarnation and stuff like that. So that's basically a main topic of what I do, but I investigate reality. As you'll see on my website, the Overwatch Project, it says it right there at the top, investigating reality. The Overwatch Project is about investigating reality without the controlled and biased dialectics of establishment sciences and religions. There's two main factions, and I'm just going to be blunt here. You got the really dense-minded, materialistic types. These are the materialist atheists. They believe that only matter is real and there is no such thing as spirit and magic, and all this other stuff is all nonsense to them. There's no afterlife. And then you have the other bulk of humanity, which is the religitards, which come in many different forms, but at their core element, they're religitards because religion is mind control. Materialism is the religion of people who don't wish to believe in what the religitards believe, and for them, primarily, for the majority of these people, the government is their god, and fake authority figures. And same thing with the religitards, only they have a layer of these controllers with their dogmas and doctrines and whatever they happen to believe in. Now, you would think what's been going on lately, which cannot really be named, because if you name it, sites like YouTube will have that stupid thing below the video, so it'll like, because I've named something that they have to correct, or they have to make sure that people know what the official truth is, they put that official truth thing underneath the video. You know what I'm talking about? So you know what's going on now. It's been going on since January, and you know that I'm a bit skeptical about the true nature of this thing. And I've heard, I don't know, maybe 10 different theories about what's been going on. Let's call it the thing that shall not be named, 19. And what's been going on is this wonderful, how should I say it briefly? Basically, the numbers don't hold up, right? They keep changing information. They give you conflicting data constantly. People literally speak for 5 minutes and say nothing in the news. And to me, what's really going on, after thinking about it carefully, I know there's a lot of talk about 5G and all this other stuff, which is interesting, and I looked at the information. But to me, that doesn't completely hold water, because while I do think 5G is potentially dangerous and needs to be examined thoroughly, the thing that when it correlates to this illness that's going around, I just don't think that is the primary cause necessarily, because these towers are still going up, and if it is the cause of something like this, then that's just going to exponentially get worse, and that doesn't jive with how they're manipulating the story right now. It just doesn't flow smoothly for me. And for me, I'm looking at all the information available to me. If you listen to my previous podcast, I'm about trying to deduce what's going on or the truth of something with all the information I have available to me, and I try to avoid cognitive dissonance. I try to avoid being ignorant. I can't help being nascent of things. There are things that I simply don't know, so I have to kind of, fill in those blanks with my deductive reasoning. So here's let me get to the chase. What I think is going on. This is just another illness like happens every 2 or 3 or 4 years. You get an additional illness that seems to pop up around the world for whatever reason. Like SARS, Zika, the Ebola scare a few years ago. These things pop up on the news. They create a general whirlwind of BS news stories about them to rile people up, get people worried, have the flavor of the month of what you're supposed to be panicked about, and then they kind of disappear because diseases normally run their course. And based on the fact that the numbers keep not only adjusting and changing, but they do weird things like if they use clever wording, like if you die with the thing that shall not be named, then you're counted as a death caused by that thing. And I was listening to this doctor on TV the other day, and he literally said there's something like, paraphrasing here, but it's insane what they're having them do, because if a person gets run over by a bus crossing the street and his death is clearly caused by the fact that he got run over by a bus, and they happen to do a post-mortem test and they find out that he's positive for that certain thing that shall not be named, 19, his death will then be marked as one of those deaths, which is insane, because they, on one side of their mouth, they're telling you, oh, you could have this and not even have any symptoms. On the other hand, panic, everyone, it's the end of the freaking world. It's like a psyop. But in order, if you ever read books about these things, declassified stuff from the military about psyops, as I've done a lot of research over the years, I absorb as much information as I can about things. And really, a good psyop is based on partial truth. What you're doing is trying to get an outcome that you want. And it's about how people perceive the event through the lens that you want to give them to see it. If you understand what I'm saying. So you could have the news focus on anything in a certain way, talk about it in a certain way. Like, for example, suddenly everybody's acting like, oh my gosh, we're mortal. we could die of a disease is unbelievable. And they run around panic, hoarding all the toilet paper. I didn't do any of that. Luckily, I haven't run out, but I haven't done any of that. The thing is that these people react. They're literally sheeple. Sheeple is actually a real word now. You can look it up in Merriam-Webster's dictionary or any dictionary, and it's what they are. And then you look at how the major trifecta religions, what their dogmas and doctrines are. I mean, one of them actually emphasizes that you're sheep, and that you are the Lord is your shepherd, and you are sheep. These people are all slaves to the mind controlling masters, the evil occultists that run the world. Now, I say evil occultists because I want to conflate that with dark magic anymore. I've come to learn through that I too was conflating light and dark, as I mentioned in my previous podcast, with good and evil. Forces of creation and destruction without sentient intent behind them are just forces of creation and destruction. What the evil occultists that run the world are people that use occulted knowledge, which is hidden in plain sight for anybody who wants to know it. And they run the world, and they have people that believing in the most ridiculous nonsense with these religions when you deconstruct all the major religions. And or if they don't like religion, you can always go with the materialist crap, which is just as insane. But all these things work together, you see. If you look at how this incident has unfolded, you'll find that the panic is coming from both the right in the USA, for example, where we divide our politics here through the Hegelian dialectic of either Democrat or Republican, or the more loose term of left or right, as people are polarized to one of those two sides without really being an independent critical thinker, you will find that these people on both sides do in their own way, promote the psyop of panic and fear and all this other nonsense. And to me, it's really ironic, especially from the religious people, because here's these people, they're saved, you see. They believe in this or that, and because they believe in this or that, they happen to be saved. And they know that they're saved, you see. And that's why they're running around acting like a bunch of assholes, hoarding an unnecessary amount of product, toilet paper, Purell, hand sanitizer, as if none of these people were wiping their asses or washing their hands before this thing happened. I mean, it really is... I really feel like an outsider watching these sheeple run around sometimes, like almost like an alien or an entity here that's like in human form, but I'm not really relating to any of these people or how they behave or how they think, nor do I want to. So that's my opinion on what's going on. And I know there's so many different theories about it, but honestly, I think it's kind of the simple theory I have that I kind of think is the most realistic one. It works. I mean, you can have a real virus running around and a real thing like we normally do every few years, which compounds on top of the regular flu season to make it worse. And people do get sick, and some people do die. But generally, these things are ignored. People generally ignore flu season. The flu kills so many people, and we kind of ignore it. And then this time, though, the manipulation and how they get these sheeple to do all this stuff. I mean, it's kind of hopeless. I mean, people like Mark Passio and other real genuine anarchists run a free the world, and they try to promote the understanding of natural law and individualism and all that stuff. And occultists, real occultists who are not political, understand the power of freedom and individuality and critical thinking and being free of mind. And even if you live in a world run by evil occultists full of slaves, you're not a slave if you're just being coerced to do certain things or behave in a certain way to avoid punishment, because you know that you're only doing it through coercion, not because, like the willing dupes of the world, you're not a sheeple. If you ever had the opportunity to do something to free yourself of this, you would probably take the advantage of that, especially if you think you could win. If you read books like The Art of War by Sun Tzu, which is generally written by a statist for statists, but you can still look at the strategies in there, and you can know that there's times that you can fight and resist, and there's times where you should remain kind of invisible. And that's what I want to say about that. And these are just some thoughts I have, and I hope they make sense and they come out coherent, because when I speak in my podcast, I dread it. I dread it because my thoughts are so much more rich with information, and when it comes out of my mouth, it just doesn't seem to flow as articulate as I want them to flow. So I hope you kind of understand what I'm saying there. So anyway, I've been listening to the Sofia Di Gregorio's podcast, and then I went and got several of her books. So I completed 2 of them thoroughly. I went back and actually reread parts of them because they were really that good. Now, her books and several other occult books happen to be on a website called, the address is wintertempestbooks.wordpress.com. wintertempestbooks.wordpress.com. If I get a chance when I'm uploading this, I'll try to include that link along with my Overwatch project link. And this podcast is primarily going out on Spreaker, and it will populate to YouTube, BitChute, and several other places on the internet. Of course, I'll put it, as my latest podcast always goes, at OverwatchProject.com and on my Minds page. So anyway, I read these 2 books. So Sophia wrote a book called How to Develop Advanced Psychic Abilities, Obtain Information About the Past, Present, and Future Through Clairvoyance. The general description of the book is advanced psychic abilities help us to live fuller, more aware lives. They set human beings apart from the animals, and when they function at a high level, they enable us to achieve that which seems beyond the ordinary. Great artists, composers, and inventors all make use of them. Such abilities are a complex faculty of your mind operating on different planes of frequencies to receive information through clairvoyance, clairaudience, or claircognizance. The other book I read was What's Next After Wicca, Non-Wiccan Occult Practices and Traditional Witchcraft. Now, I plan reading more of her books, and I'm actually started another one, but I don't want to talk about books I haven't read yet. The Wicca book says Wicca is the most accessible and socially acceptable form of witchcraft in existence in English-speaking countries today. It can be a doorway to the riches of the occult or a trap for mind and spirit, depending on how it is approached. This book provides some avenues of exploration for those who want more than Wicca has to offer. So let me start with the first book. How to Develop Advanced Psychic Abilities, Obtain Information About the Past, Present, and Future Through Clairvoyance. This book is awesome. I highly recommend it for anybody because, first of all, she has a very good skill in writing. Very articulate, easy to take in the information. And for me, to sit down and actually read words on a page instead of listening to like an audible book, I have to really, sorry about that, my phone's beeping. I have to really want to do it. It has to be something that pulls me in right away. So I was going through this book. It has many different forms of psychic abilities. It explains them in very easy to understand manner, but also has so much useful information on how to practice some of this stuff, how to improve it in yourself, and how to not only doing things, but what about dietary things that you should consider, supplements that you should consider, what these different supplements do, body and pineal gland detoxification, and it's all practical. Like, it's like stuff like, oh yeah, I can run to the grocery store and get some of this stuff, or I can go to my health food store and pick this stuff up, and I can rearrange how I eat or drink, and my sleeping habits. And it's not just about psychic abilities. I mean, I think this stuff would help with lucid dreaming, astral projection. It's got practical information in it, and it's well organized, and it's something that, you as you follow along in the book, you can take notes and actually try it. So that's why that I consider this to be a really great book, and anybody interested in psychic abilities or trying to understand them is a good book for you to pick up. The other one, What's Next After Wicca, Non-Wiccan Occult Practices and Traditional Witchcraft, actually was amazing, because when I was going through all the different religions and I was, making heads and tails of how all these things are constructed, their dogmas and doctrines, there was something about Wicca that just, and with all these religions, the core element that they all have, and that something's not quite right, is that if they have dogmas and doctrines, they kind of steal your individuality to try to make you fit what they say you should be if you're in that particular thing, and then it deprives you of your right of natural law self-defense. So you have like the religions with the turn the other cheek or submit, you're God's slave or you're God's sheep, and then you have Wicca, and they don't really do it that way. The way that they did it, and it was something that wasn't resonating right with me. There was something off about the whole thing for me, and that was this, if you do something, don't harm anyone, it comes back to you 3 times. And I know if you aren't aware of the whole true nature of natural moral law for sentient beings, as I've said before, you can go check out Mark Passio. He's got a 9-hour seminar coming out with a new documentary about natural law soon, and may hopefully be out in May. The understanding of it, and even common sense. If you're forget about magic for a second, or manipulating reality through intention or anything like that. Just in the regular world, if somebody comes up to you and for no reason attacks you or harms you, you have a right to defend yourself. That is not only natural law in several places in the world, not many, but several places in the world, even part of the government tarred arbitrary laws and regulations that allow the Sheeple class to actually be allowed to defend themselves if they were to be attacked. So there was something else, but the book covers more than just Wicca as it compares to other religions. It talks about the Sumerians. It has a broad knowledge base of all these religions and their dogmas and doctrines, and what's good about Wicca and what's bad about Wicca. And I think she got it just right. So I really enjoyed the book. It was great. Off to a different author, I was looking at some interviews from a guy named Joseph Farrell online. He has some great interviews about Yahweh, which I thought was really interesting. He really kind of exposes that whole psycho belief system. And so it's all very interesting, but those 2 books, highly recommend them. So you can find them at wintertempestbooks.wordpress.com. the links actually go over to Amazon, or you can just actually probably go on Amazon and look for her as an author, Sophia Di Gregorio, or check out her podcast, or search for the Occult Files of Sophia Di Gregorio. Take in search engine. Hopefully you're not using Google. I use DuckDuckGo, but the search engine will find her blog, which has a lot of her information on there. So I was thinking about that. Also, on my Freedom page, so at OverwatchProject.com, I just wanted to let you know, I added this short video toward the top of the Freedom page. So if you go to OverwatchProject.com, there's a navigation bar on top, or if you're looking at it on the mobile phone, it's the 3 lines on the top left corner that you click, and you see the nav there, and it says home, blog, Gab, podcast, YouTube, BitChute, Skeptology, links, books, and then there's Freedom. If you click on the Freedom page, you don't actually need to go search for Mark Passio's seminar, because all the stuff you need to know about natural law and true, genuine anarchy, which really is a word derived from the word archon, and when the Greeks put a "an" in front, meaning without, it literally means without rulers. That's why it's so laughable and moronic when people think that there can be such a thing as anarcho-communism or anarcho-socialism, which literally requires a central command ruler system to enforce any of their stupid asinine slavery rules. But anyway, I'm getting off topic. So toward the top of the Freedom thing, there's a new trailer for Mark Passio's new documentary coming out soon, but right below that is a short 6-7 minute video from Larkin Rose, Complying with Tyranny, where he nails it in 6 minutes, the whole thing wrong with this whole panic situation that we have going on, and how they're using it basically to steal more of our freedom and more of our liberty and increase their surveillance powers for the evil occultists. So that takes care of that part. And trying to think if there's anything interesting else that I could talk about tonight. I was watching The Blacklist before I made this podcast. It's one of the shows I kind of like. I kind of like this fictional tale about this Raymond Reddington, who is a mysterious, basically smooth kind of criminal who has the FBI wrapped around his finger, making them do his dirty work. I thought that's hilarious. But let me bring up... So tonight's episode included something called the Alaska Triangle, and I didn't know this thing was real. I never heard of it before. But let me bring up the little facts on this. I think it's fascinating. So when TV shows and fictional shows bring up something that they mention in their fiction stories, I always run and search right away to see if there's anything to it. And then tonight's episode, they were talking about the Alaska Triangle. And this is from a website I found called legendsofamerica.com. And the actual page is legendsofamerica.com/Alaska-triangle. And this is just a little brief part of what it says at the top of the web page about this area. It stretches from Barrow to Anchorage to Juneau, back to Barrow. It creates like a triangle right in the middle of Alaska and into the Yukon area up there, to the bottom, furthest away from the Northwest Territories. And it says the Alaska Triangle, sometimes called Alaska's Bermuda Triangle, is a place in the untouched wilderness of the frontier state where mystery lingers and people go missing at a very high rate. The Alaska Triangle connects the state's largest city of Anchorage in the south to Juneau in the southeast panhandle to Barrow, a small town on the state's north coast. Here is some of North America's most unforgiving wilderness. The area began attracting public attention in October 1972 when a small private plane carrying U.S. House Majority Leader Hale Boggs, Alaska Congressman Nick Begich, and aide Russell Brown, and their bush pilot Don Johns seemingly vanished into thin air while flying from Anchorage to Juneau. For more than a month, 50 civilian planes, 40 military aircraft, plus dozens of boats covered a search area of 32,000 square miles, but no trace of the plane, men, wreckage, or debris were ever found. Afterward, more planes went down, hikers went missing, and Alaska residents and tourists seemed to vanish into thin air. In fact, since 1988, more than 16,000 people have disappeared in the Alaska Triangle, with a missing person rate at more than twice the national average. In any given year, 500 to 2,000 people go missing in Alaska, never to be seen from again. I thought that was absolutely weird. I never heard of the Alaska Triangle, but I thought something I'd share with you tonight that I came up with, because when I do watch television, and I seem to have a resistance to that hypnotic state that TV puts most people in, I'm always just constantly analyzing what are they doing, what are they trying to make me think, how am I being propagandized. I'm always analyzing everything that I'm being fed through the TV tube, and that's why I can only stand watching like news people for like a few minutes. It's almost like they're psychic vampires for me. They're just all professional liars, which is another thing. Before I forget, why, after being constantly, literally proven to be factually liars, caught in lying schemes where they've had to pay out of court settlements to settle lawsuits, or had to issue public apologies, like when they used a sniper and explosives to blow up pickup trucks to make them seem unsafe. What was that, back in the 90s or 80s? You can look that up if you want. Why would people that have been caught manipulating data, propagandizing, lying, blatantly lying, why would people actually still listen to them and react like the sheeple that they obviously are, because they can't critically think or ask questions? The moment somebody tells me to panic, the first thing is going to be why, and where's your proof that I should panic? And I need to be convinced. I guess you could say maybe I'm a genuine skeptic, not a pseudo-skeptic like materialist. And before I check out tonight and end my podcast, I just wanted to say one other thing. Because I mentioned materialists in this podcast and the spirit world, and complained about the mind-controlled religiotards, there will be, no doubt, one of the two groups, or both, will leave their stupid comments, especially on my YouTube channel. That's where they seem to show up. And okay, so I'm well aware that, number one, you don't get into arguments with anybody on a comment section. Okay, first of all, nobody is going to change anybody's mind. That's a fact. It's pointless. It's aggravating. It's meaningless. Okay, so I'm not going to answer your, the Bible's the only true book, repent now, or there's no such thing as spirits, you're dope, whatever. Here's what's going to happen, okay? Save the trouble, because you're an ignorant fool, and if you decide to type your stupid comments there, YouTube especially has this wonderful little evil tool that they've included for publishers. It's called the hide user from channel. Now, I only use it when assholes leave asshole comments on there. And the only reason I leave my comments turned on in the first place, because most occultists, most people that do my kind of videos, disable the comments. There's a reason for that. We just don't want to see the stupid comments. But there are people out there that listen to my podcast that are well informed, know what they're talking about. They are a wealth of information, and there are not many of them, but the point being that they leave me valuable tips and information, places I should look at on the internet, a book I should read, some other person I never heard of before that has valuable information. And so I leave the comments turned on. But if you leave an a-hole comment about your stupid religion, your stupid, stuck on stupid dogma that you're whatever. I'm not even going to get into that. Maybe I should make a whole religitard rant one day, being that I suffered in Catholic school from kindergarten to the end of high school and was thoroughly fucked in the head that I had to unfuck myself, and it took years to do. Maybe I should just do a whole rant video about my experience there. But you will be hidden from channel. What does that mean? That means that you will be an idiot that thinks that your comment's still there because you can still see it, but no one else can see it. No one's going to reply to it, and it will disappear from my site also. It's my channel, and I just don't want to. There's no point. I'm not going to change your minds. You're saved. Congratulations. When your apocalyptic, horrific end of the world comes, because in the religitards, not to go off on a end of podcast on a rant or anything, but they're actually waiting for the end of the freaking world so that billions of people can be slaughtered, so they can be saved, and they can say, see, we were right. Good luck with that, a-holes. Anyway, you're not going to change my mind. I'm thoroughly researched. I've gone through the Bible. I've looked at the historicity. I've gone through the footnotes. I know more about it than obviously most of the religitards know, because when they come to my doorstep for their pamphlets and stuff, and I ask them questions that they cannot answer, and they go away all frustrated because I just blew up their world, I know this stuff. I'm not just making shit up. So don't bother. It's pointless. You'll just be wasting your time typing this shit. So, and for everybody else that knows good information, feel free to leave me a tip, because I do get them frequently, and I do follow up and look at them. I may not answer you, but I do read my comments, and if it's something interesting, I will go look at it. If I have a chance to answer, I will. So that's it for tonight. Thanks for tuning in to the Overwatch Project podcast, and I'll see you guys next time. Don't forget to check out the stuff that I've talked about tonight and do your own research. And have a good night, a good day, or whenever you happen to be listening to this. And I'll talk to you guys next time.